It's a show. It's a podcast show. Welcome to the Julie Cross Podcast Show. Empowering, energising and entertaining. Hello friends, welcome to the Julie Cross Podcast Show. Great to have you with me here today. Got a special story for you today. Many of you might know that I recently went to Africa and I met an amazing lady. She is part of the Masai tribe over there. She lives near Nairobi in Kenya. And I got to meet her while I was there, and she has an amazing story, so amazing that she has become one of my role models for me. And whenever I think I'm having a tough time, I sort of say to myself, Julie, what would Peris do? So you're going to hear her story told through an interpreter. It's an emotional journey, and it's one that helps us keep perspective in our lives, that is for sure. So please enjoy.
How old would she be then?
Nilikuwa na miaka ngapi wakati huo sasa ukitoka?
Si nilikuja tu nikiwa mdogo.
Yeah, still 12 years.
Still 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years.
Ukienda tu kwa mtu anaona tu wewe kama ni mtoto yake.
And so she used to work in people's houses, and it did not take long because it's a girl child and she's out there. Some other men just took advantage of her. So she didn't know what was happening. Au kujua ni nini ilikuwa inaendelea ndani ya tumbo yako?
Sijui ni nini. Nilikuwa nakuja namwambia shosho tumbo yangu imejaa.
And she came back home to the grandmother because her mother had already died, and she was telling the grandmother, I don't know what is happening in my tummy because it's just growing. And when the grandmother touched it a little bit, just definitely knew that she was pregnant. Somebody had taken advantage of her. And so alafu aliposikia imejaa,
akaangalia kwa tumbo hivi, akasema ni mtoto.
Alafu
sasa mimi nikakaa kwake mpaka nikasikia ushungu, akanipeleka hospitali.
Yeah, once the grandmother realized that she was pregnant, she went to the father and said, no, Peris will not go away. So she will have to live with me in my house. And she stayed in, being taken care of by the grandmother until she got to a point of delivery. She was taken to the hospital by the grandmother.
Sasa daktari anasema ati ni njaa niko nayo, ndio nimeletwa hospitali. Mimi nikaanza kusirika, ninalia tu. Alafu daktari nikakaa mpaka nikapata mtoto. Hata siwezi mwambia mtoto anatoka sababu alisema niko na njaa. Nikapata msichana.
Okay. Yeah, she went to the hospital and the doctors assessed and they said, no, labor pains not yet. But that's just hunger. And she started crying. But then later on, she gave birth to a baby girl. She was so happy. And she came back home. And on coming back home after 1 week, the father was like, okay, you've already given birth. Now, off you go. Okay, sawa. Baada ya wiki moja ukafukuzwa.
Nikakuja nyumbani. Umeelezea nimeleta nyumbani na shosho. Nikafukuzwa, nikaenda na mtoto yangu.
Yeah, after 1 week after giving birth, she's back home, and the father said, okay, yeah, 1 week. Now go away. As I told you, you're not going to stay here because you refuse to be married off. And so she went with her child, again not knowing. She's still very young. This time round on going, she worked in one of the homes as a nanny. Yeah, being taken care of together with her child. And then later on, when she recovered from that, she continued working to pay. Yeah.
Sasa mimi nikaenda nikalea mtoto yangu, kakua kakubwa. Tukakaa na nikapata singine. Nasipokuwa hii ya mwisho tu ndio nilipata akikuwa na shida.
Yeah, and she continued on working there, but still other men came in and took advantage, and that's how she got her 4 children. And the 5th one, she's saying that it came very different because she was very sick. It was a pregnancy that was very different from all the others. Mimba ya mwisho kuliendeleaje?
Nilikuwa nimepata mimba, nikaanza kuona mafinonda kwa mwili.
Yeah, during her last pregnancy she had a lot of wounds everywhere.
nikienda kwa hospitali nauliza daktari hizi ni nini, akasema nitakupatia dawa utapona, na hawezi nielezea ni shida gani.
And as she went around in the hospital seeking for medical attention and asking what she was suffering from, the doctors did not disclose to her what she's suffering from, but they were just giving her some medicine, and they told her that she's going to be all right. It went on until she came to a point of giving birth. Ulipofika wakati wa kuzaa,
nikashukuru sababu ninasikia wakati hiyo redio anatangaza HIV. Nikasikia vile anaongea na Kimasai, ni vile hizi mavitu niko nazo ndio anasema nayo, na dalili ile anaongea ni ile niko nayo.
At that particular time as she was suffering, there was this announcement all the time over the radios about HIV and AIDS, advising people to take care. And whatever symptoms that they were talking about over the radio is exactly what she was going through. So she started suspecting that she's suffering from HIV and AIDS. And when it came to that time when she's supposed to give birth, she was living in a small house, 2 rooms. She locked herself in one room and locked all the other children in the other room. It was at night. She was supposed to be helped by Emily, who was here, the other lady who was here. But then she had heard a lot over the radio that once you touch an infected person's blood, you'll obviously contract the disease. And so she decided not to call Emily, or rather not to involve anybody. And so she decided to do it by herself.
Alafu nikapata mtoto, Emily akakuja asubuhi akaniuliza kwa nini unalala? Nikamwambia ninalala sababu nasikia kichwa, nikaenda unikamulia ng'ombe.
She's happy because she had a safe delivery. She did it by herself, just alone. And the child came forth, she cut the umbilical cord, folded up the child in clothes and put her in a box. And then later on, the child suckled, had no problem at all. And then the following day, Emily came around and asked her, "Why are you still sleeping?" And she said, "Oh, I just have a small headache." And
sasa mtoto akamwambia mama iko na mtoto. Kaenda kwa kama mtoto akamwambia mama iko na mtoto.
And she told Emily, "Just go and help me milk my cows." So she went to milk the cows, and that's when her other children told Emily that mom has a child.
Oh gosh.
Wakamwambia
sasa akakimbia akakuja Emily akasema kwa nini unazaa na wewe nikuje kunielezea ninasikia uchungu. Nikamwambia yangu hana uchungu.
And Emily was so mad. Emily said, "Why didn't you call me? I always call you when I'm giving birth, and you're the one who normally help me. Why did you do it alone? Why didn't you call me?" And she said, it just came. I thought that it would wait, but it just came forth. So
nilikuwa naogopa kumwambia niko mgonjwa na usitaki unishike usishike damu.
But she did not disclose to Emily here, Emily this one, the one who was supposed to help her. She did not disclose to her that she actually did not want her to touch the blood. Yeah, her to get infected. Alafu
lakini mtoto alikuwa sawa tu, alisaliwa na nyonya na analia mzuri, lakini alifika miezi 5 akaanza kukojeka.
And so life went on well, but shortly after that, after 5 months, the child got unhealthy, very sickly, very thin, and she started going off now to the hospitals. And the doctors would tell her that your child is all right. You're the one who is not feeding your child properly. And she'd get some medicine. Then later on, because the disease persisted on and the child was getting unwell, she was referred to a national hospital by Kenyatta. By then she was worse. She was very sick, and the child too was very, very sick. And they were admitted. Tukaenda Kenyatta
ndio mtoto akapelekwa kodi yake na mimi nikapelekwa yangu sababu tulikuwa wagonjwa.
At the national hospital, they were both admitted, but the child was admitted in a separate ward from her.
Tukakaa mpaka siku ile nimesikia mzuri, nikauliza sababu nilikuja hapa na mtoto iko wapi.
She stayed there for about 7 months in the hospital, and then later on, when she was fully recovered, she called the doctors and asked them, when I came here 7 months ago, I came with a child. Tell me the truth. Did my child die, or what has happened to my child? And the doctors told her, no, your child is still alive. Do you want to see your child? And she said yes, and the child was brought. This particular time, the child was even walking. Yeah, and she was so happy to see the child. Alafu baadaye kuletwa mtoto.
Nikakaa nikamwambia nitaletea mtoto, tutapelekwa kwa rumu iko pale kwa ofisi. Nikajaribu kuingia hii ofisi, ninaona tu kila mtu amekuwa mifufa tu kama hii mtoto yangu, na anaonekana tu unashika njia mpaka unaekelea jeneza mfuba. Nikaanza kusikia.
She was taken in with the child, and they were taken to the counseling room, and that's where she was told that she's suffering from HIV and AIDS. And though she suspected, now it was so real to her, and she was now thinking about her other children, and she's the mother and she's the father, and she could not imagine how her life will end up and how her children will suffer after that.
Mimi nikaanza kulia, nikaongeleshwa, nikamwambia nitakunywa dawa, nitakaa na mtoto hawezi kufa na mimi sikufi. Nikakuwa ninatafuta dirisha nipite nianguke, sababu ninaona ndio mimi baba na ndio mama na ninakufa.
Yeah. She was counseled and told that her life will still go on despite this, but it could not get into her. Actually, she was searching for an open window to just jump and commit suicide. But then they tried to talk to her, and everybody in the hospital wards, they talked to her about it. They told her that it's not the end of the world. Later on, she had to accept it.
Sasa nikaongeleshwa mpaka tukapona, akafika wakati tunapatiwa tuende nyumbani, ruhusa tuende nyumbani.
Then later, after they knew that she's all right and she was not going to commit suicide anymore, she was told, okay, now you're fine and you're healed. This is your hospital bill. At that particular time, for those 7 months, nobody came to see her in the hospital, not even one member of the family. They never knew where she was, and they never cared about it. And then she didn't have any money to pay the hospital bill. And so she was asking the doctors, okay, because I do not have any money, employ me here. I can cook for the sick, and I can do some cleaning, and instead of paying me, you can cut it off from my bill. In the meantime, we will live here with my child, we will be eating here. And they thought a while about it, and they said, no, we don't want you to work here, so we will just allow you to go. And so she was released from the hospital and given bus fare to come back home. Alafu ukapatiwa nauri ya kukuja nyumbani. Nikakuja
nyumbani, baba akakuja akaniuliza sababu mlisungukana na hii mtoto yako, ni nini shida yenu?
When she came at home, she found the father, and the father was asking, now you've been going around with your child and you've been away for a while. Were you in the hospital? Yes. What are you suffering from?
Nikamwambia ile ugonjwa natangazwa na redio ndio nimepatikana na mtoto na mimi.
And she said that, you see, the disease that is over the radio, they're talking about it all the time, the HIV and AIDS, that's what I'm suffering from.
Ngasa kusema ndio ulifanya hivyo, ulikataza kuolewa, unakuja kurokota maugonjwa.
And the father was so mad. He said, you refuse to be married off. Now look, you've picked up a bad disease.
Akaamuka akaenda kwa manyumba ya mama, akamwambia huyu anakufa na mtoto yake.
And the father went on now to the other homes, telling all his wives that she's going to die, she's suffering from HIV and AIDS, be careful, don't get near her. That stigma was upon her.
Na wakati alikuwa shida sababu mtu akipatikana na hiyo ugonjwa ni ugonjwa ambaye hata hakuna mtu anataka kukaribia.
and everybody started avoiding her. Nobody wanted to associate themselves with her.
Mtu akikufa nasikwa na makaratasi, hakuna watu wanasika.
And she knows, because it was happening as well to some few people around. Those people who died of HIV and AIDS would be wrapped up in a bag and just buried that way. Indecent burial.
Mimi nikajaribu kwenda Jumamosi kukamua mbuzi, nikakuta ninachapu.
The following day, as she went to milk her goats, she was attacked by the brothers and they beat her up. She never knew why they were beating her up. She was so badly beaten up that she was bleeding all over, and the people who came to her rescue was her children, who were very young at that particular point, because the eldest was about 10 years and could not bear the situation, and they came around and said, no, our mother is not going to be killed in our present. Alafu
nikarudisha na watoto yangu hospitali. Nikarudisha.
She came to realize later that the father had issued to the brothers to kill her, because the father thought that she will infect the other members of the family. So their main aim was to kill her, but the children defended and then took her. At that point, she was bleeding from all over. Blood was streaming and getting into the shoes. The children, who were still very young, took her up there over into the road, and they started stopping the oncoming vehicles to see whether she's going to be taken back to the hospital. But the vehicles never stopped. They kept moving, but they could not give up. They continued stopping the vehicles until later on one just stopped and she got into the car, taken back to the hospital. Walipofika hospitali,
daktari akasema ni nini tena nimekula. Akamwambia ni baba amesema uliwa sababu iko na utu.
When she get back to the hospital, the doctors were asking, you just went home and now you're back, wounded, bleeding from all over. What happened? And she said that my father has told my brothers to kill me because I'm suffering from HIV and AIDS. And so she was taken in, treated again, and this time round sent back home, accompanied by policemen.
Sasa kaandikiwa barua akamwambia apeleke polisi. Alafu mimi nikitoka kwa hospitali, alafu anakuja anabeba baba na mababa. Mabrother alikuwa ametoroka.
Okay. Yeah, on coming back home, because they spotted the police car, the brothers had already run away, but the policemen caught them, plus the father, and they were taken into the police station. And on getting to the police station, alipofika huko,
akamwambia ni nani huyu? Akasema ni mtoto yangu. Na kwa nini unapika? Akasema nimepika sababu nataka kuelewa na nimeenda kuleta uki.
Yeah. On getting to the police station, they were questioned before getting locked in, and they were asked, who is this to you? And the father said, this is my daughter. And why this beating? And the father said, because she's suffering from HIV and AIDS, and if she stays or rather lives together with us, we are all going to be infected. She must die. And the policeman said, nobody has got a right to kill anyone, and because of what you've committed, you'll be going to the court, and that's 7 years. 7 years in jail. And they were locked in. Walipofungiwa ndani.
Akamwambia wewe baba utafungiwa kifungo ya miaka 7 na vijana yako. Sababu una ruhusa ya kuua mtu.
And so the father and the brothers were all locked in. She was told to go back home, but then she refused. She said, no, you cannot lock up my father. Please, release my father. I still love him, I respect him, despite what he did to me. And so, after pleading with the policeman, they just had no choice, because, they just released the father. And then later on, she said, okay, release even my brothers, but give them a warning. If they repeat it again, I'm not going to sympathize with them. And they were all released. Wakaachiliwa, mkakuja
nyumbani. Nikakuwa ninakaa kwa nyumba watu wanipendi, akabidi nitoroke niende Ngong.
And when she came back home, now with the brothers and the father, she thought that they were going now to, respect her. because now they are no longer.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Now they have been released, and instead of showing her some love and some care, they completely ignored and rejected her, and nobody was feeding them or taking care of her and her children until she got to a point of saying enough is enough. She left home with her last child, the sick child, and she left the other children back at home, not knowing now where she's going, because at home it's all reject and nobody want to see her. As she walked away, she not knowing where she was going, she landed in one of the towns by the name Ngong Town. Alafu
nikaenda nikapata Elizabeth Kapole. Nikakuwa ninalia, akaniuliza maswali, nikamwambia mimi naenda tu nikute siku ile nitakufa sababu niko mgonjwa na ninaenda mpaka siku ile nitakufa. Kamwambia mimi niko mama alikuwa anasaidia mimi sababu hata mimi nikiwa hivyo ananisaidia, na saa hii ninalea watoto yangu, ninakaa mzuri. Yangu nitakupelekea hata wewe ulee watoto yako.
When she went away with her child, not knowing where she's going, and she found herself in one of the towns by the name Ngong Town, and she had nowhere to live, so she made a small house out of papers, and she started living in the streets, eating from the garbages. Then later on, luckily, she came across one of her friends by the name Elizabeth Kapole, and Elizabeth wanted to know what she was doing, why she's in the streets and feeding from the garbage. And she told her story to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth happened to know One Horizon, and she told her that I'll take you to a center that is taking care of women living with HIV and AIDS, and believe me, you'll be taken good care of together with your children. And she agreed to it. So Elizabeth brought her down to our center, and that's how we met her. She was brought in very sick, very thin, and with a child. She had really suffered a lot. And on getting to the center, she was welcomed by our center manager. Her name is Mary, and welcomed by Namaza. Endelea na story.
Asi akanipelekea Mary Wanderi, alikuwa ananiongelesha na nipeleka Kasoli mpaka akanipatia chakula. Siku moja akaniongelesha mpaka akanipeleka school.
Yeah.
Na akanipelekea watoto wawili shule.
So when she got into the center, she was fed because she was very hungry, and the other ladies who were there in the center that were suffering from HIV and AIDS as well showed her a lot of love and welcomed her, and she felt at home again. And okay, that's a center, a One Horizon center, whereby we're taking care of women who are living with HIV and AIDS. Others have been referred to us by the doctors, and others like Peris have been referred to us by friends. And so when she got there after being cancelled, and she had some of the stories as well from the other ladies who were suffering from it, and she had hope for the future again. Alafu ulipoingia pale hivi, alafu endelea na hadithi.
Sasa nikapelekwa training ya mashini ya kando hapa kupika mandazi.
Yeah, at the training center, after being welcomed, she was asked what she would like to do. She had choices to learn so many things at the center. And there was candle making, there was sewing, as you saw the sewing machine there. There was as well the beads making. That's where she perfected it. She learned all those three. And by the way, she was the best when it came to beads. She was very good. She also did the candles, and she was selling them in the shops around. She made a lot of money out of it. Wonderful. And she was one of the best. Not forgetting that when she came to the center, she came back home for the other children. And One Horizon has made some beautiful houses for them. And we got her one of the houses where we housed her with her children. We took care of her children. We took them to school. and life began again for her. Yeah, she was happy.
They stayed there for 4 years.
Yeah, and she stayed at the training, received all the training. You saw her photo as she graduated.
Yeah.
And then she continued on staying in that house. And as she was there, she continued making the beads and selling them from that center. And she made money out of it. That's how she acquired money to buy the land here. Yeah, after making money, and then later on she thought it's good to come and say hi to Dad. And when she came to say hi to the father, I saw that. And coming to say hi to Dad, and then later on she was like, "Oh, Dad, may I please get a piece of land?" Ulipokuja kwa baba,
nikamwambia baba, ninataka kashamba na uniusie. Kasema wewe unaweza pata pesa wapi? Nikamwambia baba, uniusie tu, unisikize, unionyeshe kimali kidogo, nitalipa.
After
unielezee ni pesa ngapi.
Okay, after visiting the father, later on she said, "Dad, can you give me a piece of land?" And the father said, "No, no, and never. Girl child, girl child does not inherit anything. So I cannot give you. All this belongs to my sons and my sons alone." And she said, "Okay, I'm willing then to buy. Are you going to sell a piece of land to me? Where are you going to get money from? You don't have anything." And she said, "No, I have some money. Are you going to sell me land? Okay, fine, I'll sell you." And she came and she was shown here, half an acre, and she purchased it. It costed $300,000. How many dollars are those?
It's about 4,000.
Yeah,
That's
about $4,000.
But under a secure title.
Yeah.
There's no why it happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, after paying for it, she had to go through that process of securing a title deed, because she definitely knew that it would turn around and it would be taken away from her. And as she continued living on there, she continued making the jewelries, and later on she saved enough to build this home, and she's living again. Somebody who was dirty in the streets, somebody who had no future, no hope for tomorrow, is here today, living again. And when she came here, after living enough at the house that had been provided by One Horizon, when she came here, the father looked at her and said, "Surely you're a man."
I'm very proud of He was very proud of
He was very proud and said, "I'm not sure whether you are sick or you are lying to me, because you don't look sick anymore."
Yes.
And she said, "I've been taking medication and my health is much better." And then later on, when she started building, man, there was a truck coming down with all the materials, and building was just going on, and unbelievable. Today she's here.
She's
You're such an inspiration.
The housing was simply designed for this, not necessarily rent free. It was take the opportunity for 4 years, for whatever you earn, to save the money, rather than getting in the cycle of paying rent and not having anything left.
Yeah.
So that was the purpose of the housing. I mean, it's nice to have, but it's now take advantage of what you're earning and save. You got that window, So that's really the purpose of that, to assist that leg up, rather than after 4 years have nothing, because you've got kids, So that's the purpose of that, which she absolutely was able to exploit more than any of the others of They were very envious, because Peris is one of the types that would come home after making the beads and doing that, and then put in night's work making the candles. It was a fair bit of work. Although we bought the machine, it was available for everybody. She was the one that got in and did it. And then she'd have all the kids out there selling it. So a great distribution network, because in the slum, particularly in the associated slum, everybody relies on candles. So she was the one that did the hard work.
Well, she's just an inspiration. Amazing. Absolutely inspirational.
And on coming here, because she had the skills, she called the sisters, and they usually sit on these tables. Sit here, and they continue making them as they are singing. Like, that's what they normally do here with the sister. And the sisters have learned it from her, and they are making it together. And they normally bring it out. At the end of the day, you'll be seeing some of the things that they have been making together.
Yes.
A lot of jewelries that they normally make. The other thing that she normally goes to the communities around, telling people that please don't kick out your daughters simply because they are suffering from HIV and AIDS. I'm also suffering from it, and I've lived on.
Yes.
There is still future, there is still hope, even for those who are suffering. So please give them a chance. She has been of great help to the community as well. Yeah.
See, it's all about, the retraining program is all about living positively.
Yeah.
Like just get on with your life.
Absolutely.
And it's a big education here for the rest, because at times we have to put security on the compound.
Yeah.
The local thugs think that they'll just take advantage of it. But so it's been an education for everybody about how you combat it. Yeah, and what you do. But the whole thing about is don't be apologetic. About where you are, and this is what you've done. So when the graduation occurs, it's a festification. They march in the street.
Oh, can imagine the pride,
Absolutely.
of having achieved it. Against all odds. Against all odds.
Against all odds, yeah.
Against all, especially in this with this story.
What a strength. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I say the strongest ones in society
Oh,
Wengine tu hapa
because the guys are gone.
kwa sababu picha itatoka na giza.
And
Yeah.
bringing all that happen.
Yeah.
And it's quite an inspiration even to
Yeah.
us.
She's saying that they are going to display all the things that they've been making just here.
fantastic.
So
Similar stories.
you'll get to have a look.
There's not one.
Love to hear your thoughts about this show, or if there is something that you would love discussed on the Julie Cross podcast show, then please head over to iTunes and leave a review. Love to hear from you.